Good evening, I'm Greer McGeary, President of Seahorse Victoria. My guest tonight is Susan Haywood, who has spent a career in backstage of live theatre shows, colloquially known as Mrs Wig. Welcome.
Thank you.
One of the interesting things I think about your story is what sort of prompted you to get into theatre?
When I was a little kid, I used to have this recurring dream, and it made me so happy for the whole day when I woke up after it. But it was, we went up the road, probably with my brother, I don't know, but we go up the road to these people who had this giant old-fashioned meat mincer. It was like a giant thing, like the size of a car. And you told them what you wanted to be, and then you hopped in and you went through the mincer, and when you came out, there was like a huge cornucopia of light and colour and costumes, and it was just wonderful. I don't know what I was dressed as. I never remember saying what I wanted to be or anything, but and that was just wonderful. And we were doing 42nd Street, and the producer said, I want some stories from backstage, from the crew. So I said, I've got one for you. How about this? I told her, and she was, oh, really? Oh, isn't that wonderful? I think it was published in the Age newspaper.
So having that recurring dream which made you really happy,
Yeah.
was your childhood a happy childhood?
Oh, well, I had the best mother in the world. She was a saint.
We
My
all
father
do.
was a waste of time. I worked that out when I was about 3. I thought, what's he doing here anyway? We don't need him. Anyway, that was life in the 50s, of course. You know, mothers didn't have much of a choice.
Some parts of the world, they still think mothers and women should still be there.
Well, my great-grandmother was one of the signatories to the petition to the New Zealand Parliament for the women's vote. So I do come from a line of pretty strong women.
So did that sort of follow you, that sense of strength from the women in your family through your schooling?
I was a bit of a daydreamer at school. I didn't make friends very easily. And I thought I didn't talk. I couldn't be bothered talking. I thought, let them all talk. I haven't got anything to say. At school reunion, someone said, you are so different from school. I said, what? She said, you never used to speak. And someone else said, only when she had something important to say, and then you'd go, oh. But apparently I spoke with this big plum in my mouth as a kid.
So that was all primary school.
And I loved the dress-ups for concerts and things. I was in the school choir, and I sang in the church choir. And
Never been my forte to sing in anything, maybe a 1,000-voice choir.
well, our choir master conducted a 2,500 voice choir in Latvia. He came to Australia after the war. When we lost him, he died like I was about 3rd form. I couldn't be bothered with school much.
So were you sort of still reticent through secondary school? You know, like that quietness?
I remember when I went to the show with my grandfather, Feed the Pigs, I think, and he's introducing me to people. This is Mr. So-and-so, and I'd be going, oh, no, I've got to speak. Anyway, he said, don't just say hello. You know, ask them, how are you getting on? So another guy comes along, a Jersey breeder, and I said, oh, hello, how are you getting on? Oh, no, good this year, only got a 2nd. And I thought, oh, no. And then the same sort of thing happened when I started work. I just didn't speak. And my boss said, you need to speak to the client. So I went back. There was only one client with the rinse on her hair. Went back out and said, oh, how are you going today? And she said, oh, if you don't mind, dear, I don't feel like talking. My mother just died.
You sort of left school and got a job. So what were your first sort of jobs that you had?
Well, I started as a Saturday girl, doing the shampoo girl, but I don't think I spoke to anyone. And I had to get the train home, and they hadn't paid me, and I was too scared to ask them for the money. So my grandmother really, because I went to live with my grandma when I started hairdressing, and met up with some people who said, oh, you must join our church youth group. Well, they were Presbyterians. And oh, you are a Presbyterian? I said, oh, yes. What is that?
Yeah, fingers crossed.
And we were going on a camp, and I had to fill out this form about stuff and, you know, what are you good at? And my grandmother said, a good mixer. You write that down. Oh, no, I'm not. I was like a little mouse. But I think I was just in a dream half the time.
Yeah.
But I always had that love of theatre. My aunt used to take my brother and I to pantos, and then she took us to My Fair Lady. Oh, I thought I'd died and gone to heaven.
So was this while you were still
very young,
the shampoo girl or the
oh,
apprentice?
No, this was like
well
before I did the paper round.
What was the apprenticeship like in the hairdresser? You said you started out as a shampoo girl.
Yeah, well, then I got an apprenticeship, and then by the time I was 19, I was managing a salon. By the time I was 22, I had my own salon, and I think I was about 30 or something when I met someone from the theatre, amateur theatre. Oh, we're doing Robert and Elizabeth. And I said, don't you need wigs for that? Who does that? Oh, I'll find out. Oh, the next thing I get a phone call. Yes, we'd love you to do wigs. Yes. And can you sew? Can you sing? Oh, a bit. I thought, I don't want to be in the show. Oh, you come and have an audition. Can you sew? Oh, yes. Oh, well, we're having a working bee. So I end up making these crinolines and bonnets, all your own costumes, looking after the leading lady and all the wigs for all the cast. And
so that was sort of like a fortuitous meeting.
It was just meant to be.
I imagine then your dreams from the young girl age was starting to sort of say, oh, there's possibilities here.
It was just sort of a part of me, I think, that was just there. It was just bubbling away, and it was meant to be. A psychic did tell me I had worked in theatre in Drury Lane in London. She also said you'll meet people who will ask you about things. What's she talking about? And it happened. There was Italian, a director and a designer, I think, when I was working with Victoria State Opera, and they stopped me in the corridor with this costume, and it turned out they wanted. There was a pocket in the back that had been stitched up, and that had to be unstitched because the guy pulled the flower out of it. And they say, oh, you'll fix, here, this. And I said, no, I do hair. No, you know. And then they came back again with a ballet slipper, sort of a little flat thing, and they wanted me to put a ribbon on it. And I said, no. Oh, you know, you'll fix. And I thought, then I remembered that woman saying that, and I thought, oh my goodness.
Getting into theatre. So what was your first really big production, production that you were involved with? Well,
the first one was Robert and Elizabeth, which was with Cheltenham Light Opera. And then I did No, Nanette. And the director said, get Susan Haywood in here. I want her doing those wigs, thank you. The next one would have been Sweeney Todd. First time it was done outside of America. And the director thought I knew everything. And he's saying, oh, we need a beard that comes off. And I've got a clue. So I went and found the woman who started the makeup department at the ABC. Oh, yeah. I found her. I don't know how. I think she worked in David Jones or somewhere. I don't remember. But she gave me her notes to follow and all sorts. She must have seen something. So I did Sweeney Todd, and that was amazing. My all-time favourite show.
Learning how to do things like fake beards and all that sort of stuff. How long did it take? Did you do a lot of experimenting before you?
No.
Just straight application.
Let's do this. I've always been like that. I knitted one slipper once. My grandmother said, will you get the mate to that slipper and put them away? I said, there isn't one. Yeah. What do you mean there isn't one? I said, I just want to know if I could do it.
That sort of, I suppose, spontaneity seems to be flowing right through your young age.
You know, being backstage, because I was in Robert and Elizabeth, then I was in Best Little Whorehouse in Texas, and I thought, what am I doing this for? I had to stand up on this thing with a great big rooster beside me. I won't tell you what the cast said about that. And I just didn't have any nerves or anything. And I thought, oh, I don't know. I think someone else needs this job and I'll just stay backstage. Yeah. So I did. Oh, I was in Wizard of Oz.
One of the things that I'm sort of getting from you is that there was just an acceptance of the way you sort of progressed into the business. You know?
Oh, yes, total acceptance. And I'd found my tribe. Yeah. And the kids from the ballet would be in tears because I was working on, I think it was Chicago, and they were doing a rerun of Madame Butterfly, and there was loads of wigs and lots of bits and pieces. And And the wardrobe mistress, Mark, said, "Oh, the kids are bawling because you're not here." I said, "Oh." And one of them, years later, I was down at the malt house and this little voice from upstairs said, "Sue!" And I went, "What?" And I saw this little face, tiny little thing. She was gorgeous. And she said, "Don't move, I have to talk to you." And she came tearing down. She said, "Oh," hugged me. She said, "I never did get a chance to say thank you." I said, "What for?" "Well, you know, I used to come in the wig room when we were at the Opera House and you'd counsel me really because I was deciding whether or not I'd leave the company and you helped me." And I thought, did I? I was being like my mum, just listen.
It's not so much the words that you say or consciously say, but it's the way you approach somebody and actually listen to what they say.
With love and care. Theatre's a dangerous place to work. You could get killed. We know people have been killed when a fly, you know, with the lights come in and collect them. But it's a team effort and it's a family, really. So you really have to pull together. Then, of course, at the Arts Centre, there was Level 9, which Sue Nattrass, who was the first, after George Fairfax, she was the general manager at the Arts Centre, and she came through. She started lighting and sound, and then she became the boss. And she was adored and loved by everybody.
Working in this sort of family environment, as you called it, when they brought in, say, a big name star, what were they like to work with?
Wonderful. Never a problem. Kiri Te Kanawa. I mean, I could name millions of them. Not millions, but lots. I mean, we had this amazing woman. She was the dramatic soprano for the Wagner Society in Hamburg. And they got her to come and do the Wagner, Lohengrin, 4 hours of singing. Voice. And the designer said, "Don't let her see that other wig." So 2 weeks I wanted to have a change. So we sort of discussed it a bit and she said, "There's another wig, isn't there?" I said, "I know nothing." She said, "I know where your wig room is." She went round and she said, "I'm not having that one. You know what you're doing. Just do it." People say the glamour and excitement of the theatre. I said, "Well, the glamour used to be in the foyer on opening night. Not so much of that these days, but the excitement is standing side stage with a 100-chorus opera and a 100-piece orchestra and the Wagnerian soprano singing her aria, no microphones, and just, I still get goosebumps thinking of it. And her voice just went out right across the State Theatre auditorium, and anyone who's been there knows how big it is, and then it just flowed back and just, I thought that's the excitement, that's the joy of the theatre.
The first panto I ever really went to was in primary school in Deniliquin, and there was a Shakespeare touring company that came around and sort of did a Midsummer Night's Dream, you know, and all us little kids from the primary school come and sat there and watched it. It was, it wasn't really, it was a cross panto and sort of stage acting because it was designed for kids to sort of enjoy it.
Get used to Shakespeare.
I think that was the one I remember the most. Secondary school, I never really got into it. Yeah, like you knew the basic storylines of a love.
Well, I always say, you may not remember what you ate when you were 3 or 4 years old. You might remember something that you wore if it was special, but you will always remember what the song was.
Yeah.
And that stays forever. Someone said, "Oh, I don't know about that." I said, "Well, I do. You are my sunshine, my only sunshine."
And it's that sort of sense that really enlivens you and makes you feel, you know, welcome in the world, doesn't it?
And, you know, if you're good at your job, because I was trained by a German lady, who used to Marcel wave the models' hair, wigs, for the shops in Berlin, I think it was. And so she taught me how to use the old-fashioned tongs and do curls, and she'd get me to perm hair. She'd say, "You do the bit at the back." And these old ladies would have these little tiny perm rods, and you'd have to... And she said, "If you can do that, you'll be able to do the rest." And then she taught me to cut hair by letting me cut her hair. I thought, well, she must have thought I was all right. But all that, and of course in the 60s and 70s, and it was all those up hairdos and wiggle it.
With that training, did you get to travel overseas?
Well, I was the touring wig mistress for the Australian Ballet. We did Manon in New Zealand, which was fun, 65 wigs and bits and huge. Anyway, and we did Madame Butterfly in New York at the New York Ballet Theatre, and that was wonderful because it was also Bangara. That we toured Bangara and the Australian Ballet, did a co-production of a thing called Rights, and Miranda Coney had these twigs in her hair, and everybody was ochre, and I've actually got a post board, and I got them all to put footprints and handprints in the ochre. I offered it to Bangara, but if you're listening, you can still have it. It's in my trunk at home. But and that was, I actually rang Macca on a Sunday on the radio, and I was determined I was going to speak to him, and I said, I want to tell you about a reconciliation. Bangara and the Australian Ballet, that they're actually doing their production of their choreography and everything, and we had all this quick changes of ochre, and Jakapura, who was the guy, Aboriginal, full blood from South Australia, beautiful man, and I'd worked with them down at Malthouse a few times when they first started, really. And he had to come off stage, have some of the ochre that was on wiped off, and then put this grey one on. I did manage to step into the bucket of ochre, which the boys thought was hilarious. But they're ready with the... And he came off and I was sploshing it on. No, it was so lovely. We had such a good time. And I said to Macca, that's a reconciliation job, you know. This was 99.
That's sort of an aspect I've been exploring with a number of other conversations I had, is that connection. Doesn't matter who you are, what background you come from, whether you're from a First Nations background or somebody from overseas. It's, as you say, you know, sort of, oh, we're all the same, aren't we?
Well, when we did, I did a lot of work with MTC because Laura, who was their wig mistress, said, I've got someone. She gave them a year's notice. She said, I've got someone I can train to be a wig maker. She's a great hairdresser, but she'll be a terrific wig maker. Oh, we can't afford 2 people. So it didn't happen. Her notice was up and they hadn't got anyone. And they'd advertised all over the world, really. And so then they rang me and said, would you be able to do some maintenance because Laura's gone, and it was another year before they pinched Jurgen from the ABC. But we did Our Country's Good it was the recruiting officer. It was a back-to-back one. And the recruiting officer was the first play staged in Australia with convicts. I don't know if there were officers in it. I don't know the whole story. And Tommy Lewis was in that. He was Jimmy Blacksmith. Yeah, he's passed, unfortunately. Yeah, sad. But he said he wanted to know, could he have one of those white wigs? I said, no, you can't have. You're a servant. You can't have that. Can I have a ponytail? I said, you could have a ponytail, yes. And his hair was sort of long, beautiful hair. His mother was full blood from Arnhem Land. His father was an English drover, I think, who always supported him. He said he always supported him, but he wasn't allowed onto the mission. His mother wasn't allowed off.
That's really strange.
Yeah, it was awful. And he made a documentary about, you know, I'm half black and half white and nobody wants me.
That's part of, as I said, the conversations I've been having is how do we include people, you know, and the stories you've been telling about the theatre and how everyone really acted as a family, the wonderful people you've met, you know, and the story you tell about Tommy there is indicative of some of the issues that we need to resolve.
Absolutely.
So do you feel that theatre as such makes people think about those issues?
I don't know what it's like today, because in the 90s it was wonderful. And we could just stroll into the Arts Centre. You had no security or anything. But of course 9/11 happened and then everything changed, and I haven't really... Well, 2002 I was called back to do Manon. I'd been diagnosed with rheumatoid disease, so I wasn't able to do anything.
Yeah, so you've done the travelling and that connection with coming back into work. Pre 9/11, as you said, like things were very accessible. And
Yes.
and the question there was really about, the type of theatre that was being played, being provocative in the way people think about issues, because we've been talking about Tommy, and compared to maybe now, or do you go to much theatre now to be able to compare for when you were really working backstage?
I don't go to many musicals. I was thrilled to see Warhorse. I said, if I never see another thing on a stage, I've seen the most amazing production, and it really was extraordinary. But I like to support like small theatre, like La Mama and those sort of Chapel off Chapel. And
Well, a lot of that small theatre, that's what I was sort of getting at. It tends to be thought-provoking type productions, isn't it?
Yes, incredible. And the talent in this country is just extraordinary. But I'm very much against not having music for children in school. They don't have it's just appalling. And we should all be campaigning against, because, as I say, you remember your song.
Just recently went to my granddaughter's school winter concert, where she was part of the choir, but there was lots of musical, a whole range of instruments, almost full orchestras, and violins, and for saxophones and kettle drum, and so it was really really great to see, and the standard was very high. You say you really love the music. So these days, not being involved directly, how do all those memories make you feel now?
Like I should be finishing the book that I keep saying I'm writing. I don't know how I feel. I feel the same. Winston Churchill said, one day you wake up and you say, that's it, my work here is done. And I do feel that I achieved an enormous amount, and a great deal of respect from lots of people who, designers would say, get Susan, where is she?
So you've been making notes, or have you sort of written chapters up already?
Got loads of notes and loads of stories. I really should turn on the recorder when I'm telling them, so that then I can transpose them.
One of the things about trying to write stuff down is that I know when I try to write stuff down, and sometimes I can write a nice story, but write a couple of sentences, I should reword that, I should reword that.
Oh, no, you don't do that until you've written plenty.
I know.
And then you have a look.
That's the way I've it takes forever to try and do something. In summing up where you've been with your whole career, what's the thing that really stands out for you?
The one thing that I'm extremely proud of, the Gate Theatre Company came from Ireland, and the wardrobe mistress manager at the Arts Centre said, they need you over at the Playhouse. I was working on Man of La Mancha. No, I wasn't. I was working on Joseph and his amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. And the stage manager from over at the Playhouse, no, I was sent over there. What am I saying? I'm getting my shows muddled up and thinking about the American Indians and who wanted me to braid the dancers' hair. I said, I can't. I know what it means, and I can't. I'm not worthy. Because that's a sacred thing with the Native Americans, that they braid their love in to protect the men. I said, I'm not worthy. We'd like you to do it. I said, I can't. But when the Beckett Theatre came and I had to go over, they said, they want wigs. So off I trot, and the stage manager was there, and I said, I've got a feeling there's someone here I might know. Have you got a cast list? They were doing Waiting for Godot. Out comes the cast list. I said, ha, Pat Kinnevane's here. There was only one wig. Turned out he was wearing it and I was looking after him. So I knocked on his dressing room door, because I had met him when he was here performing previously. And I said, he said, what are you doing? I said, I'm doing you. You're being lucky and I'm doing the wig. So I went off down to the wardrobe room and found the wig, which looked like a half dead dog out of the rain.
Yeah.
And it was the colour of your hair, actually. Shiny and beautiful. When I washed it and I'd had it on the block and I started to do it, and this man came in, turned out he's the director. It also turned out he wasn't just the director. He was Walter Asmus, who was Beckett's right-hand man. So he said, can you make him beautiful? With German accent. And I thought, this is the easiest gig I've ever had. Just got to do that. It goes under the hat. And they take the hat off and the hair just cascades. That's what he meant, make him beautiful. So then after the opening night, Pat came, who was playing that character, and he said, Walter's very happy. The wig is perfect, exactly what Mr. Beckett always wanted but never got. And I went, wow, that's a big compliment.
And so on that big compliment, I think a really wonderful note to finish up telling your story and that fantastic memories that you have. So
yes.
Thank you, Susan, for being my guest.
Oh, absolute pleasure. Thank you, Greer.
I'm Greer McGeary. My guest has been Susan Haywood. Thank you for watching Bent TV.